you. I was just briefed by Dr. Kara Christ on the latest with COVID-19 and our numbers here in the state of Arizona. Arizona continues to see progress with a downward trajectory of COVID positivity. Our trends are also very positive. Last week, our percent positivity decreased from 10% to 8%. And so far this week, we are at a 6% positivity rate. The percentage of COVID-like illness in our hospitals has decreased to 5.8%. Hospital capacity remains at about 20%, with a drastic decrease in the number of beds in use by COVID-19 patients. And the R0, the rate of reproduction, is the second lowest in the nation at 0.83. When R0 is below 1, the spread of the virus will slow. I want to really thank Arizonans for continuing to mask up and doing the fundamentals like physically distancing, washing their hands, and remaining responsible in their decision making. My ask today is keep doing what you're doing. We need to stay the course here. It's making a big difference for our state. We were pleased to put forward data-driven benchmarks for both school reopenings and for our businesses. We want to provide as much certainty and clarity as possible during a very uncertain time. We believe this is the most responsible way to safely reopen in a gradual and cautious way. And we won't be letting up anytime soon. We certainly will not be taking any victory laps. We continue to mourn every death, and we want to do everything possible to avoid contraction of COVID-19 and reduce deaths into the future. Continue to do everything we can to ensure that we contain the spread of the disease and protect our most vulnerable. Overall, the hard work and sacrifices are paying off, so I want to thank Arizonans for their efforts, and the message is stay the course. Don't let up. Stay vigilant. I also want to thank Dr. Christ and her excellent team here at the Department of Health Services for their hard work and commitment and partnership in battling COVID-19. And with that, we'll take a few questions.
So, Howie. Hi, Governor.
Hi, Howie.
We've been watching what's coming out of Washington in terms of unemployment. And originally there was going to be a 25% match. Now they've said the state can have $300 a week for its residents. What are you waiting on here? I mean, it seems like you've got a whole bunch of folks suffering with an average payout in this state of $210 a week. Why haven't you made a decision on that yet?
Well, first thing I want to say is I did call on Congress to ask. I guess a synonym for Congress could have been Washington, D.C. So I'm grateful for the administration in acting. We did put out a statement that we want to do what we can to relieve the burden. Here in Arizona, what we're doing is making sure we understand all the details. We're crunching the numbers, and we will have an announcement on this on Friday.
But there are no numbers to crunch. I understand why you may be wanting to crunch the numbers.
There are numbers to crunch.
But the fact is, it's all federal money. You know, are you afraid?
That's not accurate, Howie. We'll have an announcement on Friday.
Okay. Are you? Just real quickly. Are you afraid that if people keep getting the extra $300 or $400, they won't go back to work?
No. That's. I want to be responsible with our state dollars. Like I said, we only get to spend our state dollars once. We don't get to print money or borrow money. We're grateful to the administration for acting. We are going to act on these dollars. We have every intention of plussing up unemployment. Details will be Friday.
What's up, Billy? Governor Billy Hartbosh, iHeartRadio, shifting gears. People are upset around the country. College football, a lot of conferences are canceled. Football is more than a game, as you know. The Pac-12 canceled. Huge impact on the state of Arizona. Do you agree with that decision, and what kind of an impact will it have on our state from a revenue standpoint?
I don't agree with the decision. I'm disappointed in the decision. It will affect the state, of course, from a standpoint of revenue. I certainly thought there was a way that we could do this. Right now, fans are not participating in these events. over the course of time, a vaccine at some point, lower positivity, more rapid testing. There's all kinds of things that we could have done to mitigate it from a fan or observer standpoint. Some of the sports are non-contact at all, and they've been canceled as well. So I was disappointed with the decision.
Jeremy?
Governor, you recently unveiled the administration's guidelines for or benchmarks for schools to go back to resume in-person instruction. Maricopa County, of course, does not meet those criteria. We're already seeing school districts here and elsewhere in southern Arizona, new counties that don't meet those benchmarks, resuming full in-person instruction starting next week. Was it a mistake to make these just recommendations and not make them mandatory?
No, we've got different variations of spread throughout the state. The state is headed in the right direction. Most of our counties are headed in the right direction. So what we wanted to do was provide a menu of options and flexibility in the guidelines so that there's safety inside our schools. We're going to leave ultimate and final decisions to superintendents and principals, and I'm confident they'll make good decisions.
Do you agree with these districts' decision to just open?
We're supportive of the districts. We're supportive of the districts.
Having the criteria then, if there's no
To help guide decision making. You know, but part of this is around being able to physically distance, wearing masks. We have some school districts that are packed with children. We have others where there's more room and availability, and no one cares more about kids than their parents, their teachers, the principals, and the superintendents. There's also the option for distance learning for anyone that would like it, but when someone can safely get back inside a classroom with the teacher at the front of the classroom, that's something we're highly supportive of.
We're going to go to Dennis next and then Andrew.
Yeah. If you could just clarify, I just don't understand, how you can say they can safely socially distance and you're supportive of these schools just ignoring the benchmarks. I mean, why not have an enforcement
We're not ignoring the
mechanism?
benchmarks. I mean, many of
The schools are.
many of the districts are close on the benchmarks, and they're making decisions.
Andrew?
Governor, I think somewhere around 37,000 applicants are still waiting on unemployment benefits due to a backlog. When's the state going to clear that backlog?
So, Andrew, I want to say in terms of the Department of Economic Security, there's been $8.5 billion that have been put out over the last several months. They're fielding as many as 10,000 phone calls a day, and they need to be able to do more. So there is a backlog. We want to clear the backlog. We've been hiring additional people, adding resources and servers to address the need, and we want to do it as quickly as possible. Part of the reason that there's been delay, and this is happening in all 50 states, with the amount of dollars that have been dispersed through economic security and the welfare agencies at the state level, there has been some fraud. So there's had to be some double checking, some coordination with the federal government and investigation, and we're confident now that we've got the right systems and algorithms in place to disperse the
There are
dollars.
still people who were held up in receiving their benefits because of suspicions of fraud, but who had legitimate claims or have issues to work out with DES. When will the state be able to, have sped up those investigations and eliminate that backlog?
We've got all hands on deck to
Closed?
do that as soon as possible.
I mean, I think Washington closed it by using the National Guard. Is the state doing that? Is it taking,
We're bringing on every resource possible. We're hiring people in which to do it.
We're going to go to Peter and then Ben Giles next.
Dovetailing on that question, so the director you brought in was making a six-figure salary. Do you think that his work was successful, warranted the high salary, especially since people cannot get their benefits, as some of them say?
I just want to say that Tom Betlak was such an incredible public servant to the state of Arizona. He spent his entire career working for state government, 5 different governors, both political parties, and in Arizona's time of maximum challenge, he came out of retirement to help fix and address the stress that was put on the Department of Economic Security. We're grateful to Tom Betlak. There's an award in state government called the Tom Betlak Award because that's the standard of excellence that he's operated with his entire career.
We'll go to Ben.
Governor, we've got President Trump expected to come to perhaps Yuma next Tuesday, maybe the first of many visits as we head towards Election Day. Do you or your health department consult with the president or any other rally campaign event that wants to happen here to try to adhere to your standards for limiting large gatherings of people and to get people to wear masks at those events?
Well, I want to say we've been given a heads up for Tuesday in Yuma. We haven't received any details, but earlier this week we had the vice president in town for 2 rather large events, and I participated in those events. It seemed to me that everybody was socially distanced in the event. I looked at the crowd in both events, both in Tucson and in Greater Phoenix, and everyone, to my eye, appeared to be wearing a mask. So it's responsible behavior, and I imagine that's what it will continue to be going forward.
We'll go to Nicole and then Telemundo.
Governor, what is the strategy to continue this downward trajectory and keep it there? Have you set up a long-term planning group like other states? And do you feel your decisions have been too inconsistent from what to close, when to open, and how? Are your messages inconsistent?
Our strategy is to follow the public health guidelines. I was just back in Washington, D.C., and was able to spend time with Dr. Robert Redfield, Dr. Deborah Birx, spent time with Admiral Giroir, with the Vice President. These are their words, not mine, but that Arizona is the model for how a state can put mitigation steps forward to drive the virus down in the right trajectory. So it's very simple things: wearing a mask, physically distancing, washing your hands, covering your cough. These are the things that we'll continue to do, and like I said, we're going to stay vigilant.
Governor, do all Arizonans need to sign up for Twitter in order to get information from you and your staff directly, to hear from you, since you don't seem like you want to talk to Arizonans directly?
I'm right here, you're right there. Ask whatever you'd like.
After 14 days. Then if I could have one more then,
Last question, please.
do Arizonans deserve more from you then?
I would actually say if you want to get accurate information, I'd stay off social media.
Telemundo.
Hey, Governor, I would like to get your reaction regarding the Arizona Multi-Housing Organization and several other people that are.
Pardon me, will you say again?
Yeah, I just wanted to get your reaction. The Arizona Multi-Housing Association and other folks are filing suit regarding the evictions order that you put in. What is your reaction to this? How long can this actually
My
go on?
reaction is get in line. All right, we're doing everything we can to protect people in this state, to protect the most vulnerable through a public health emergency and an economic disruption.
Some people that
And we'll continue to do it.
Some people that have different houses that they rent out, of course, they're not getting some income. So what is the resources out there for those?
So there's $90
folks?
million available in rental assistance. People can go to the Arizona governor's website, azgovernor.gov, and there will be information that will take them to how they can access that assistance.
Have you seen this successful? Are people seeking that help so far?
Well, we're working on both fronts, both from the eviction front and then, of course, from the benefit front. One thing that I don't think has been utilized to the level of ability or capacity is $90 million in rental assistance.
We're going to go to Mitch
Thank you.
Carr with 12 News Net. Then we'll come over here.
Good afternoon, Governor. This morning, President Trump stated publicly that he opposes more funding for the U.S. Postal Service. He acknowledges that his position would hurt the mail-in balloting. You were just there. You told him mail-in balloting here in Arizona works great. So do you think it's appropriate for the president to take that kind of stance against mail-in balloting, especially during this pandemic?
Well, my focus is on the state of Arizona. And Arizona is, if not the pioneer, a model of excellence for mail-in balloting. I think in our last election cycle, 78% of voters voted by mail. I imagine that the number will be even higher, but we've put state resources working with Secretary of State Katie Hobbs to ensure that we have a successful election day. What I've been outspoken about is experimentation in mail-in balloting, states that are putting this together at the last moment. We've been doing it since 1992. Arizona's going to be able to get it right. And because you mentioned this, I also want to manage expectations. If people remember on some of the races in 2018, on election night, we did not yet have a winner. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to announce a winner on election night. But I think with what we're seeing across the country, with the amount of ballots that are coming in, both mail-in, drop-off, and election day, it's entirely possible that we will not be able to announce or declare a winner on that evening. And I think it's important that people realize that, but we will count all the ballots and announce the numbers as we have them.
Can I get one more? You've said you support the school districts and their choices. Queen Creek decided that they're going to go back, and their teachers decided to resign. That's kind of a black or white issue, whether you support the district or the individual teachers who've decided not to teach. Which side do you take there?
I support the principals, I support the superintendents, and I support the parents. I know they have the best interests of the kids at heart, and so do the teachers.
So you don't support the teachers. You didn't mention the teachers there and people you
There's a
support.
lot of teachers that can't wait to get to the front of the classroom.
We're going to go to Dylan and then Matt next.
So going back to what Nicole asked you, it's been 14 days since your last time that you talked to Arizonans directly. There's been two big announcements since then that you weren't there for. One, you were in D.C., one was earlier this week that your staff gave, not publicly, just to media, so not to Arizonans. Do Arizonans deserve to hear more?
Yes, all the information that we put out is public. I was in Washington, D.C. I had some requests for the state of Arizona of the coronavirus task force. They've been a partner in what we're doing, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do, go wherever I need to go to make sure that Arizona has the resources and support so that we can battle this virus to the maximum level of our ability, and also bring on all possible federal support for our healthcare workers and for our citizens as necessary. And I'll continue to do that.
But do Arizonans need, do you think they...
I talk to Arizonans all the time, Dylan.
We're going to go to Matt next.
This is another question about benchmarks with the
Hey, Dylan, I haven't been out of the state since March 7th.
business benchmarks.
Yes, until D.C.
Go ahead.
All right. The business benchmarks, I want to ask, it seems like those seem more of a mandate, while the school benchmarks seem more of a guideline, because we've seen this week that businesses here in Maricopa County have gone ahead and reopened without meeting those benchmarks. Is there any penalty to them other than a threat?
Yes, there's been enforcement. I want to say to our businesses, the last thing I ever had any desire to do upon running for office was to shut down a business that is operating legally. But with a public health emergency and a pandemic, there's a difference between legally and safely. And I know with the broad brush in which we've had to paint in some of these situations, there were responsible businesses that were affected by this. But we've been in the unhappy but responsible business of breaking up large gatherings of adults. And we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to use the enforcement mechanisms available to do that. The good news is we're working with these groups, these organizations, these business owners, and these stakeholder groups on how to successfully reopen. It will be with some guidelines and guardrails. It will be around occupancy, much like our dine-in restaurants are operating right now. But that's the objective, with the idea of protecting life, protecting public health first and foremost. And that's been also the consistency in the orders that we've put forward.
About that enforcement, I know DHS has served some of these businesses, you have to immediately shut down. Some of them I spoke to said, we're not going to do this for a couple of reasons. Can't afford to do it. The governor's not being clear, and this isn't going to hold up in court. What do you say to that?
Well, we'll see about that.
We're going to go to Morgan Lowe next.
Thanks, Governor. Do you have a plan or strategy to increase the testing? Because we have a lot more capacity than we have people that are getting tested. And do you believe that the widespread testing of school-aged children is important and imperative to keep this line heading down?
Great question, Morgan. And for whatever reason, when the virus is spreading at its maximum, that's when we have maximum demand for testing. You've seen the last several weeks when we've had these conferences, I've been able to talk to you about improving numbers, less cases, lower positivity. So we simply don't have the demand for testing right now. We committed to 30,000 tests available a month by the end of July. We can hit that. 60,000 tests available by the end of August. We can hit that as well, and we're talking on a daily basis here. What we want to do is we're going to go to school districts. We're going to work with parents, superintendents, and children in a way that makes it easy and convenient. Today in Arizona, if you get a test, you should have your results that day or the day after.
And do you think that people who don't have symptoms, because we know that there's a large asymptomatic population out there, should they be going to get tested just to see?
Yes, we want everyone that wants to get a test to get a test. Somebody who has time on their hands, we want them to get a test. We couldn't say that several weeks ago. It was about being sick, symptomatic, or being exposed to COVID-19. Today, we have the capacity in which to do it. You can go to azhealth.gov, find out where these testing centers are. I think there's 375 of them throughout the state. We want to make it easy and convenient. So yes, go get a test.
And just really quickly, are you going to recommend that school districts set up situations to get students tested?
We're working with school districts on getting children tested today.
We have 1 minute to questions. We'll do last question with Bob here.
Governor, I got one for Kara first. Dr. Christ, you worked with Superintendent Hoffman in the governor's office, obviously, in directing these school metrics. And now you have some school districts, who the governor has defended just now, ignoring them and saying we're going to open Monday even though we don't meet the metrics that you said. Is that safe from a public health standpoint in your view?
So when you look at the roadmap that we also helped create for the departments, we know that this is going to be a reduced capacity when they go back, which is why they were recommendations and not requirements. We ask that they engage with their local public health department so that they can do that in the safest manner possible.
So you didn't answer the question. Is this going to be safe in your view as a public health official if we congregate children in a school when you have high positivity rates still and at least that one metric not being met, if not some of the others?
So some of those are very close. It's going to depend, the safety is going to depend on the mitigation steps that those schools are employing. They're supposed to post what they're going to do to keep the students safe on their website. And so as a parent, I would encourage you to go see what the school district is doing. They are still offering virtual learning, so if you don't feel that your child would be safe, they can opt for the virtual learning.
All right. And then for you, Governor, last week you were back with the president, as you said, as we all saw, and you were not taking a victory lap, but you were getting congratulations for us. What essentially 2 months ago, and in this very room, we were saying, look at all those people in Scottsdale bars, and you said, don't worry about it. And
I've never checked the transcript. I've never said, don't worry about it. I've never said, don't worry about it.
What you said was, I want to
We've been
thank the 7
vigilant
million
the entire
Arizona-
time. We're going to continue to be vigilant. It wasn't a victory lap. They're using Arizona as a model of the mitigation steps to slow the spread of this. And I want to thank the Arizonans that have put on a mask, washed their hands, and socially distanced. We want to stay the course.
Can I ask my question, sir?
Yeah, as long as you're done putting words in my mouth.
I'm not. So the question was, 2 months ago when we were pressing you about the bars and you didn't take action and then you were forced to because of this huge increase in cases. Now you're letting schools reopen. Are we going to be back here?
We
in a
have
month or
clear
two?
and cautious guidelines, and the objective is to make sure that we stay in an ever-improving condition. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have situations that we're going to need to address, but just know it'll be in the same targeted, measured, and urgent fashion.
Right, but these guidelines that your own office put out and Kara Chris put out and Superintendent Hoffman come out aren't met, and some schools are going ahead anyway.
These are guidelines, and there are flexibilities.
Shouldn't there be some sort of enforcement? Is there something that counties can do since you've left it to the local level? Can they go into schools or maybe take people, I don't know, any type of enforcement that can be done?
There's options for the parents in these situations.
We'll take one more. I saw Andrew had a follow-up. This is the last
Governor, you
question.
mentioned assistance on housing. How much of that has the state actually distributed, and why isn't it actually distributing more of that since it's been available for?
It's a little, Andrew. It's a little bit like testing. We have capacity. We haven't had the demand. Possibly we need to do a better job communicating that $90 million is available. Can I finish the answer?
Sure.
Can I finish the answer?
It sounds like there's demand.
Well, then people should apply for it because it's available. The other thing that I would say is we've put out $8.5 billion in unemployment insurance benefits. So it's quite possible that those dollars have been used to pay rents and mortgages.
Why enforce businesses to close, but yet let these schools stay open? Back to
Because-
what we were
because-
just asking, why are you not enforcing schools
Because
with
I-
our kids to close if the benchmarks aren't met?
Because we've been in the unhappy but responsible business of dispersing large adult gatherings.
Last question was not Gallagher, please go ahead.
Though you'll work with your superintendent or work with your principal. Like I said, there's a menu of options there for both parents, children, and teachers. I'll leave that up to the principals.
So it's okay for large groups of kids, but not adults?
Jeremy, go ahead, please, Jeremy.
On the housing money, this is one of the complaints I think a lot of us probably heard from the landlords, from these groups, that they feel like your administration isn't distributing it quickly enough or broadly enough to these renters who need assistance, which of course deprives them of the rents they need. What's your response to that? We're all hearing it from these landlords who are filing for lawsuits.
Jeremy, the state has never dispersed dollars at the rate or amount that we've been dispersing the last several months in the history of the state. And we want to continue where appropriate and where necessary to get those dollars. And we'll have clarity on the unemployment benefits going forward on Friday. I'm pointing out the $90 million available in rental assistance that we have today at the state level, but I don't think you can look past the larger number of $8.5 billion that's already gone out to these vulnerable and needy individuals.
Governor, I want to just clarify one thing. Your order allowed resorts to reopen their swimming pools and splash clubs, but freestanding splash places like Mesa are not. Tell me what the difference is between the splash pad at the Hilton and the splash pad at Mesa.
We're working with the larger places, commercial places on guidance and reopening, and we did put guidance limiting groups in the pools and the resorts.
Understood, but why can't Mesa Sunsplash live by the same rules?
It's somewhat the same thing that I talked about on some of these other businesses, that we're operating responsibly, but underneath the category, it was not. We're working with them on reopening.
I got one more question for Dr. Chris.
Last question for Dennis, please.
Just for Dr. Chris, you heard the governor say they were in the unfortunate position of breaking up large gatherings of adults. Is it safer to have large gatherings of kids?
So there's still a lot that we're trying to learn about the virus. Kids appear at this time to not transmit the virus as effectively as adults. However, that as we learn more, that is something that we could find out more about. However, there's so many things that happen at school that are important for the appropriate growth and development of children that if we can get them back into the classroom, we want to get them back in the classroom.
Well, if there is so much that is unknown, isn't this a risk to send them back into the classroom?
Well, and I think the reason I couldn't answer why all schools were safe, it's going to depend on those mitigation measures. Again, if they can appropriately physically distance, if they make them wear the masks, if they are able to cohort groups, that would be a safe environment for kids to return, knowing that a portion of them are going to stay virtual. And so that's really important.
And lastly, continue to wear your mask, wash your hands, socially distance.
Governor, when will we see you?